Right on, right on, right on.
The Sardine Hubbub. I've had sardines in my pantry for a while now because of the recommendations of healthy eating in the keto carnivore space.
There are many things to love about sardines. Now, if you've never tried them before, and you've only smelled them when someone else is eating them, you might think, ooh, gross, I don't want to eat a sardine, they're nasty. I promise you, they're not nasty. There are several different ways to prepare them that I'll tell you about later in this video, and they are a literal superfood, and here's why. They are rich sources of all the collagen building blocks to help strengthen your bones and rebuild tendons, ligaments, and cartilage that your bones and joints need. They are an excellent source of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids like DHA and EPA that are very good for your brain and your heart. You've probably heard about those. They're a great source of protein. They have more protein than the average protein shake and way fewer carbohydrates. They actually have 0 carbs. They have all the amino acids that you need. They are a complete protein for building bones, muscles, and other tissues in your body. They're full of vitamins and minerals naturally. They don't have to be fortified, right? They're great sources of B12, D3. They're great sources of calcium, naturally occurring calcium. Much better for you than taking calcium supplement. They're rich with iron, magnesium, potassium, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, and vitamin K2. Now, they actually have the real vitamin A, unlike the fake beta-carotene vitamin A that is touted to be in green leafy vegetables that some of us have a very hard time converting over into actual real vitamin A. They're also great sources of zinc, phosphorus, vitamin B2, and niacin. I mean, does that not sound like a multivitamin to you? Since they're full of healthy protein and healthy fats, they're going to hack your hunger and your satiety hormones and keep you full for many hours after you eat them. They're a very uninflammatory food. They don't contain any phyto or zoochemicals that are going to cause inflammation in your body. As I said earlier, they are 0 carbs. So if you're eating a low carb or a keto diet, they are a perfect superfood addition to your proper human diet. Now let's talk about the mercury and heavy metal buildup that's in many species of fish like swordfish and even in some tuna. These fish eat thousands of other fish who in turn eat other fish, and that's how the heavy metals build up in the swordfish or the tuna's body. Sardines don't eat other fish. They eat plankton. So they're kind of at the primary, at the very first end of the food chain. So they don't have a heavy metal buildup in their tissue. So the only sardine you may have ever been exposed to in your life is the canned sardines that come from the supermarket. But you can also buy sardines fresh. You can get them pickled, grilled, or smoked. So there's many different flavors that sardines come in that you can enjoy. I get my sardines in water only. Now you can get them in olive oil. But as we've all read in the news in the past year or two, many olive oils are adulterated with canola oil or soybean oil. And so even though it says olive oil on the can, I don't know if I can trust that or not. So I just get my sardines in water. That way I know there's no unhealthy inflammatory oils added. Never ever eat sardines that are packed in soybean oil or canola oil. Very inflammatory, very high in omega-6 fatty acids. Not a good choice. Now, also don't get the fillets because here's why. The kind of sardine that you want to get in order to maximize your health benefits is whole sardines with the bones in and the skin on. Okay, and I know that sounds a little gross if you're not used to eating things like that, but I promise you, getting them grilled or smoked or pickled or putting some 0 carb mustard on top and some pepper, you're going to love them. I promise you, if you've never tried sardines, and I want you to make it your next check mark on your bucket list, is to try a can of sardines with the bones in, the skin on, in water, and then tell me in the comments below what you thought about it. I love my sardines with zero carb mustard on top. Some people like to use something like Primal Kitchen's mayo. That's a good way to make your sardines taste better or less bad, depending on what your current thoughts on it are. Some people put very low carb hot sauce on their sardines, and that's the way they love them. However you try them, just please promise me you're going to try them at least one time. I've had many people who thought they hated sardines. Try them with one of these different flavorings and say, Dr. Gray, I freaking love sardines. How often can I eat them? You can eat a can of sardines every day. You can eat a can of sardines twice a week, once a week. Any time you add sardines to your diet with the bones in and the skin on, you are giving your body vitamins and minerals that it otherwise might never have had access to, plus the omega-3 fatty acids that are so hard to get.
Recently, I chanced upon Indigo Neely's Sardine Challenge video, which I thought was somewhat pitiful. Why would you torture yourself trying to eat something so unpleasant? Just makes no sense. But I like sardines, and mackerel and oysters and clams, all that stuff. So I went to the source. At least I think she is, Dr. Boz and her 72-hour sardine fast. It's not a fast. Fasting is when you don't eat. This is an elimination diet. Boz claims it will boost your ketones. The crux of it is that you eat only sardines for 72 hours. You eat them whenever you are hungry. Easy peasy. Except for the part where eating sardines alone is not necessarily a pleasant experience after the first 10. Nope, I'm not doing that. But I am going to increase my consumption of seafood to daily. Here's how I'm doing it. For my first eat, I soft fry 6 eggs and add seafood of one kind or another to my bowl. Sten Ekberg discusses which seafood is safest to consume.
Number 5, trout, but it has to be freshwater trout. The ocean trout is much, much higher in mercury. And trout is so delicious. It is quite a bit like salmon. It's so delicious if you can find it smoked. That's my favorite. Great food, but again, it needs to be freshwater. Now we're up to significant amounts of omega-3s. It has 1,070 milligrams. Stuff you buy in the store, it will be farm raised. Now you have to look very carefully for the wild caught, because otherwise with the farm raised, now you're back into the same situation as what we talked about before. Number 5, trout, but it has to be freshwater trout. The ocean trout is much, much higher in mercury. And trout is so delicious. It is quite a bit like salmon. It's so delicious if you can find it smoked. That's my favorite. Great food, but again, it needs to be freshwater. Now we're up to significant amounts of omega-3s. It has 1,070 milligrams of omega-3s. And we're not just talking fish oil here. It's not like 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. It's 1,000 milligrams of the actual precious omega-3 fatty acids. It's the DHA and the EPA and something called DPA. So those are the 3 top long-chain fatty acids that do wonders for our brain and nervous system. So this might be equivalent to actually about 5,000 milligrams of fish oil, depending on how that oil is concentrated. It is very moderate. It's not the lowest, but 71 parts per billion of mercury is probably not going to hurt you. So that's again in the green category, where they say that you can eat it and enjoy it as much as you want. Number 4 on the list is herring. This is an old favorite in Sweden. They used to pickle it, but if you're not a fan of pickled herring, then you might want to try it smoked. Now we're getting up to really good levels. We have almost 2,000 milligrams, almost twice as much as the trout, 1,890 milligrams of omega-3s, and about 84 parts per billion of the mercury. Number 3 on the list, one of my absolute favorites, is sardines. I love sardines. I eat them probably at least twice a week. It is so inexpensive, it is so convenient. You just pop open a can, you get a fork, and you have a meal right there. It has 1,500 milligrams of omega-3s per 100 grams. So all these numbers, by the way, are per 100 grams of food. So the number you see here is basically a percentage. So 1,500 milligrams means that 1.5% of the entire meal is concentrated omega-3s. It only has 13 parts per billion of the mercury, because again, remember, it's a very small, very young fish, and it doesn't have time to accumulate a lot of toxins. So a lot of fish oil is actually made from sardines. Now we're getting up into the heavy hitters. Number 2 on the list is mackerel, and it's the Atlantic mackerel, unlike the king mackerel. So size matters. Okay, the larger ones are going to accumulate more toxins, they live longer, they eat more other fish, but the small mackerel, and the version I tested was the Atlantic, is very, very safe. It only has 50 parts per billion of mercury, but it has the highest level of omega-3s of any fish, 2,670 milligrams of omega-3. So here, you can have one serving of fish, a relatively small serving of fish, and get equivalent to a handful of fish oil capsules. Okay, so here is where it starts to really matter. This is where you can really have an impact. Down here, you can probably still need to take fish oil no matter how much of these fish you eat, but up here is where you get a significant amount of these omega-3s. Number 1 on the list, you all knew that it had to show up somewhere. Number 1 is salmon. It is the crowning achievement is the perfect combination of very, very low mercury and very, very high omega-3s. 2,590 milligrams omega-3s and only 22 parts per billion of mercury. So no wonder the salmon is so popular. It's not just the taste and the availability, but it is extremely nutritious. Again, you gotta get the wild caught because the farmed salmon is just as bad as the other stuff. So use these numbers with caution, okay? Use some common sense, take it with a grain of salt, because like I said, these mercury levels, they're based on one set of readings, okay? The FDA published numbers, but it was between 1990 and 2010 or something like that. It's not something that they do every year, everywhere in the world. So just because a number is low doesn't guarantee that that fish is always going to be that low or at that level. So use some common sense and remember that the safest way to go by is small and young fish are going to be your best bet.